Hi everyone, my name's Kayla. Welcome back for week 2 of Monster Munchies. So this week, the theme of the week is oats and nuts. Now I love nuts, but this week I'm gonna go with oats, so I'm able to take this into work to pawn off on my coworkers because I work in a nut-free workplace. So I'm gonna be making apple cinnamon oatmeal bread. I'm gonna start off with 12 3/4 ounces of bread flour in my stand mixer bowl. Actually, I'm not gonna put it on there yet. I'm gonna have my stand mixer with the dough hook on it. I'm gonna add to this 3.5 ounces of old-fashioned oats, not the instant kind. And then I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter that I've cut up a little bit so it'll mix in more easily. One and a half teaspoons of salt. 3 tablespoons of honey. Using the spatula to make sure all of that gets in there. 2 teaspoons of instant yeast that I'm going to plop in, not on top of the salt because the salt will kill the yeast if it's next to it too soon. I have 1 1/4 cups of warm milk. I just stuck it in the microwave for like 30 seconds, so it's warm enough that it feels warm when I stick my finger, but not so hot that it'll be uncomfortable when I stick my finger into it. So then I'm also gonna add some cinnamon to there. I'm gonna go with 2 teaspoons for now. And then I'm gonna give that a mix with my spatula because sometimes if you just start it out with the dough hook, it won't get some of the stuff at the bottom. So I'm gonna mix it up with my spatula before putting it in my stand mixer and kneading it with the dough hook. So now that it's formed kind of a shaggy dough, I'm gonna stick it into my mixer and knead it for about 5 minutes or until it's nice and smooth and elastic. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. I'm gonna turn off the mixer. The dough is still pretty sticky. It hasn't quite come together as much as I was hoping it would, but I'm gonna knead it by hand a little bit as well. So since mixing it, it's come together a little bit into kind of a ball. I'm gonna put some flour down on my counter and turn it out. And when working with a really sticky dough, having a bench scraper on hand is never a bad idea either. So I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and get a little dirty. Whoops. Now that I have it on the counter, I'm also gonna add my apples. I didn't add them in while the mixer was going, because sometimes they'll get broken up and they'll tear into the dough a little bit. So I have about a cup of chopped up dried apples. Also, you know, from the pineapple that made its debut last week. I tossed them in a little bit of flour and a little bit of cinnamon, just so they have that flavor and so they're not too wet. So I'm gonna just stick them on top of this dough that I flattened out a little, and then I'm gonna gently knead them in. And now that my apples are pretty well incorporated and this has come into a nice ball, I'm gonna shape it into a little ball, putting the seam side down, sealing it up a little on the table like this. And I'm going to put it into a lightly greased bowl that I've already prepared, seam side down, cover it and let it rise in a warm place for an hour until it starts to look a little bit puffy. So now that this dough has had a chance to rise a little bit, it hasn't quite doubled in size, but it has puffed up a little bit, I'm going to shape it. So I'm going to turn it out onto an oiled countertop and press it out into like a long oval kind of shape. Then I'm going to take the top half, or top third, push it down, turn it over, do the same thing with the other third, and then kind of fold it in on itself and tuck the edges under a little bit. Just make sure there's a good seal on there. Now that it's kind of in a loaf shape, I'm going to put it into a greased loaf pan with the seam side down. I'm going to cover it with some greased plastic wrap lightly, and then I am going to let it rise for an hour to an hour and a half, or until the dough rises about an inch or two above the line of the pan. So now that I have this covered with some lightly greased plastic wrap, I'm going to let it rise for an hour to an hour and a half. I'm going to turn my oven on in about a half hour to give it time to get nice and warm before it's time to bake. I'm going to set that oven to 350. So now that our little baby's all grown up, we're going to send them up to the oven. It's going to bake for 35 to 40 minutes in a 350 degree oven, or until an instant read thermometer reads 190 degrees. So off he goes. So I just took this out of the oven. I'm going to take it out of the pan to cool so the crust does not get soggy steaming inside the pan. So I'm just gonna pop this guy out. It's looking pretty good. And let it cool completely on a rack before cutting into it. So now that this bread is cool, I'm gonna slice into it and see what we got. It smells really good. pretty good bread. I think it was a little bit underproofed. It was chilly out today and the side kind of blew up when I baked it. But the taste is really good. The apple's given a nice little sweetness and it's a really soft, nice bread. Let's see what our feline flavor inspector Felix thinks of it. Come here. Do you like it? No? Okay, see you later. Well, I guess this one is not a winner for Felix. Not enough dairy product in it for him, I guess. We'll try again next week. Thanks for watching.